Sicher, second Sicher, Lekutei Sichos, Chiluk Chavov, Parshas Pekudei. Before we start the Sicher inside, I just want to read some of the psukim. It'll make it easier to understand. The beginning of Parshas Pekudei, it starts off with the words Eila Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan Eidos. These are the countings of the Mishkan Eidos that was through Moshe Rabbeinu. The next pasuk says that Betzalel, Ben Uri Mechur, did everything, was told, and so too with his friend. The other one, Itay, together with him was Eliyahu ben Achisomach. Okay. After it says that, then the Torah gives a cheshbon of how much gold did they get in from the donations. So the Torah says that the gold that they got was Teisha V'estim Kikor, 29 Kikor of gold, Ushva Meis V'shleishim Shekel V'Shekel HaKedesh, and 730 Shkolim Shekel HaKedesh. Then it says, how much silver did they get in? So it says they got in silver was 100 Kikor, and 1,775 shekel HaKedesh. Then the pasuk says, what did they do with the silver? And it says from the silver they made the Adonim. Then it says there was the extra 1,775. That was used for the Vovim Lamudim that was made for hooks on the poles, and they covered the tops, whatever it is. Then it says, what did they use the copper for? How much copper was there and what they used it for? So it says that the copper was 70 kikor and 2,400 shekel. And then the Torah continues what they used the copper for. So it says for the copper they used for the Adonim, some Adonim from the Pesach Meid, from Mizbeach HaNecheshes, Mirbar HaNecheshes, and other things that they used the copper for. And then the Torah goes on about the Big Tikkuna, what they used the Big Tikkuna. So here we see what the Seder of the Psukim is, as I just read, is that first the Torah tells us how much gold was there, but the Torah doesn't tell us what they used the gold for. Then it says how much silver there was, and the Torah says what the silver would use for. Then it says how much copper came in, and the Torah says what they used the copper for. So there's a question here. Why doesn't the Torah say also what they used the gold for? Like I said, it says how much gold came in, that's all it says, but it doesn't say what it was used for. Then it says how much silver came in, and it says what it was used for. Then it says how much copper came in, and it says what it was used for. So the Rebbe says like this, in dem Tam for was man gefindt in der Torah beim Lechas Binyan HaMishkan. The reason why you find in the Torah, when they built the Mishkan, as Moshe Rabbeinu gegeben a cheshbon, was man hat gemacht von dem Kesef von der Chesef von Nitz HaMishkan, that Moshe Rabbeinu gave a cheshbon, an accounting of what they used the silver and the copper for, aber nicht was man gemacht mit dem Zov. But the Torah doesn't say what the cheshbon was, what they made. It says there, as Rebbe brings the Torah, only says that the amount of silver that came in, of gold that came in, but it doesn't say what it was used for. But concerning what they used the silver for and what they used the copper for, the Torah does say, but the Torah doesn't say what they used the gold for. Zog der Kli Yakar, so the Kli Yakar says like this, and I'll just give an introduction. They used gold also part of the Big Tikkun. When they made the garments for the Kohanim, there was gold in it also. So therefore he says that when they made the cheshbon here, this was before the Big Tikkun, so they didn't make the cheshbon of say what the gold was used for, because the gold was something that was still going to be used. And I'll read inside. The Kli Yakar says, after they finished all the things making the Mishkan generally, and the details, I guess, the vessels in the Mishkan, and everything that they had to do, make from silver and copper, is and the reason, after Moshe Rabbeinu, when they finished the Melechas HaMishkan, and everything is in order, in order Moshe Rabbeinu should not be suspected of like taking some silver for him, some stuff for himself, but Moshe, so therefore Moshe Rabbeinu noch eider hat gemacht the Big Tikkun in welches gewesen so. So even before they made the garments which had some gold in it, so right away gewollt geben a cheshbon from the Kesef von the Cheshes. As soon as possible, Moshe wanted to give a cheshbon so that people should not be chesed that he's misusing it, so to speak. So therefore, as soon as they finished the Kesef, and everything that they needed the silver for, everything that they needed the copper for, right away he gave a cheshbon. He didn't give a cheshbon, or not gewollt warten mit a cheshbon, And concerning the gold, Moshe Rabbeinu did not wait to the cheshbon. He didn't want to wait for not the gold. He didn't wait with the cheshbon of the silver and the copper, what they used it for. As soon as they finished using it, he made the cheshbon and said what it was used for. So what Moshe wanted is to make a cheshbon of what they finished doing. So when they finished the gold, the silver, and they finished the copper, he right away made a cheshbon and said what it's for in order not to be chshad. And this was before they finished the gold. So as soon as they finished everything with the copper, the silver, and the copper, he made a cheshbon. And he didn't want to wait to make the cheshbon of the silver and the copper after later when they finished with the gold. Because the gold, he couldn't make the cheshbon right away because they still needed to use it for the big tikkun. So in simple words, as soon as they finished with the silver and the copper, which was completely done, he made the cheshbon right away. He didn't want anybody to suspect him. And the gold, he didn't make a cheshbon then because it wasn't finished yet, because the gold had to be used still for the big tikkun. Now, the question is, why didn't he make a cheshbon of the gold afterwards? Okay, he didn't want to make it right away because it wasn't finished yet. But as soon as the big tikkun was finished, why didn't he then tell us what the gold was used for, make a cheshbon that was used for? So the Klayoker explains, und das was hat nicht gemacht a cheshbon von dem Zof, take if noch ein Gemara sees big tikkun. And the reason he didn't make a cheshbon of the gold right after they finished the big tikkun, and then the gold was finished, so why did he make a cheshbon there? He's a mavayir up in deeper medrash. He explains that based on a medrash. Says the medrash like this: Shebo Moshe lost his cheshbon akol dover v'dover. When Moshe came to give a cheshbon and everything, what they used it for, choser min hamishkel elef v'shvam meis v'chamish v'shim mishkolim. So in the cheshbon, he didn't. There was missing in the cheshbon 1,775 shkolim. The shochach, and he forgot. This was from the silver. He forgot. He forgot what it was used for. He didn't know what it was used for. Yotze Baskel v'omro. So Baskel came out. A voice from heaven came out and said, that the 1,000 and the 775 also he made vovim lamudim for hooks on the amudim. That's why the pasuk makes a special note of this 1,775, because the Baskel came out and reminded the Yidden what this was made for, and the reason the Baskel did it, l'kayim hashenemer, to fulfill what the pasuk says. There's a pasuk that says Moshe Rabbeinu is trustworthy. The whole Beis Emonu, he's trustworthy by the Eibishter. So the voice came out and said, "Don't suspect Moshe, even though he didn't remember what this extra 1,775 was for. We're telling you we know what it's for," and he told him what it's for. What happened now? So now the Yidden got a Baskel telling him that Moshe is honest. The Seisat means like this: that Afapi was the Baskel that is gesagt, Veselem Gemer given wegen Kesef. Even though when the Baskel came out, was to make sure to tell everybody that the silver was used properly, and it wasn't nit zob, it wasn't concerning the gold. The Balda, but as Yidden gesehen, as in the Shemayim is made of nation, since the Yidden saw that from heaven they're is testifying on Moshe that he's honest. So they didn't need the cheshbon for the gold. So it comes like this is the way that Klayoka says. Right after he finished with the silver, finished with the copper, he told them exactly what was done. Now in the silver itself, there was a part that he didn't remember. A Baskel came out and said you could trust him, this and this is what they used for. Now, but he didn't say this it's gold because it wasn't finished yet. And he didn't want to wait for the others till the gold, so he said it right away what it was made for. Then, after the Baskel came out concerning the silver, testifying that he's honest, so now there was no need for Moshe. When the big tikkun is finished and the gold is finished, he should tell us what it's used for. The whole reason why he was telling it is because people shouldn't be chesed him, shouldn't suspect that he's taking away, he misused it. But now he didn't have to prove that, because the Baskel already proved. Even though the Baskel was talking about the silver, but the Baskel said that he's trustworthy. Kol beis emanu. So now there was no need for Moshe Rabbeinu to say what the gold was used for. That's the explanation of the Klayoka. The beer, der beer is aber nicht glatik. This beer is not so simple. Why? Not so smooth. Well, number one, the verte v'se'ele v'sheva meyes, these words, where the pasuk says that the 1,775 shkolim, what the Baskel hat Edis gesagt, wegen dem Cheshbon von Kesef, that the Baskol testified concerning the cheshbon of the silver. Stein in Posik, lifting the cheshbon from the mecheshes. That's written in the Posik before the Torah tells us the cheshbon of the copper. So it comes out that when did the Baskol come out? After the silver, but before the copper. Is Keshem v'Meishet nochem Baskol nit gedarf geben a cheshbon from themselves. So the same as we said, that after the Baskol came out, Moshe didn't need to give a cheshbon, a calculation, and what they used the gold for. Because after the Baskol, he didn't have to prove it because the Baskol testified he was honest. So he also shouldn't have to give a cheshbon the cheshes, because if you look in Posik, the Baskol came out before he finished, before the cheshbon of the cheshes. So before the Necheshes, there was a Baskol already that he's honest. So just like we said, he didn't have to make a cheshbon, what he used the gold for, because the Baskol said that he's honest, he didn't have to give a cheshbon of Necheshes. That's number one kasha. Second kasha is, B'cholif, in any way, if there was a voice from heaven, if you're relying on the voice from heaven, that testified that Moshe Rabbeinu is trustworthy, to get my cheshbon, Lord from them so, and nicht bis man kazer, so in ganzen Tag geben kein cheshbon. Why did the Baskol come out in such a way, in such a time, that would avoid him, that he wouldn't need to give the cheshbon from the gold? Why did it only come in such a time? Eich nicht from the kesef and the cheshes. Why didn't the Baskol come out earlier? Make a cheshbon, say he's honest before he was going to give a cheshbon of the silver and the copper. They knew that they will suspect him and he'll have to prove it. So right away, the Baskol could have come out and said that he's honest and he wouldn't have to prove anything. We use the Baskol anyway. That's why the gold he didn't have to make a cheshbon to tell us what he used it for, because the Baskol already said he's honest. So why couldn't the Baskol come out before? And he wouldn't have to give a cheshbon, not for the silver, not for the copper. So if the whole reason is because of the Baskol, it sounds strange. Why didn't the Baskol come out before? So there must be some extra shot here, why he only made a cheshbon from the silver and the copper, what that's used for. He didn't make a cheshbon what the gold is used for. The Ashleimer, so that we can say it like this. By starting off with another Inyan, shot in the Posik. Pekudei HaMishkan asher pukad al Moshe, when the Posik says, Pekudei HaMishkan asher pukad al pi Moshe. This is the counting of the Mishkan. Now, it seems like this is, the Torah is telling us that now we're going to give a cheshbon of how much gold, silver thing came in, and what they used for, etc., etc. But it's not like that. It's nicht stam geben a cheshbon. It's not just to give a cheshbon. No, it's negei dem etzem in a Mishkan. The cheshbon that Moshe made is important for the concept of the Mishkan itself. How? So it's a bahagdim, by first bringing in something else. First asking a kasha. L'chure farvos chazer dibe the Torah noch einmal betchilas haparsha gleich noch dem ersten Posik ubetzalel benuri ben chur lemat Yehuda oses kol asher tziv Hashem es Moshe v'ite oli ben nechesamach umatadon cheresh v'cheshev. Why did the Posik repeat in the beginning of the Parsha, right after the first Posik, this is the counting of the Mishkan that Moshe did. Right away it says that Betzalel and Oliov were involved in making the Mishkan. And then it goes into the cheshbon of the gold, etc., etc. Why does the Torah have to repeat that Betzalel and Oliov were involved in making the Mishkan? We know that from earlier. It says in our 11, we know from Pasha Kisiso, and then in Pasha Vayakel, we already know that they were involved. Why would the Torah say it here? Like Medrash Razal, according to some Medrashim, and according to Rashi, the same thing, the Torah is trying to teach us something new. As the Posek says that Betzalel did what Hashem told Moshe. So it's trying to tell us that even though Moshe told him a little different, but he did what Hashem told Moshe. Rashi and the Chazal say that it doesn't say here that Betzalel did what Moshe told him, but it says what Hashem told Moshe. Even things that Moshe didn't tell him, Betzalel mind figured out on his own what Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's what the Torah repeats it, to tell us that he did what Hashem told Moshe, not the way Moshe told him. So that answers the question why the Torah repeats again here that Betzalel and Eliyav made the Mishkan. This is not a good enough reason. It's a reason, it's explanation, but it needs more explanation. Why? If the Torah wants to tell us this new thing, the Torah could have written it. But why is it written someplace in the middle? Starts off the posik, this is the counting of Moshe. Now we would expect what would be right after that, the counting, the gold and the silver, how much was, what they used it for. But here, after the posik, that this is the counting of Moshe. Before the posik of the cheshbeinis, that's where it Haksarayim puts in the middle that B'tzalel and Leib made the Mishkan. As a gedarf stein order free, should have been written before Pekudei, B'sof Parsha Vayakel, then Vayakel. When it finishes everything there, it should have said it then. B'tzalel made the Mishkan to teach us that he kashatziv Hashem as Moshe, like Hashem told Moshe. Or the Nord Psukim was gegeben der Cheshbon for themselves kesef necheshes. Or after it goes through the Cheshbon, say like this: this is the Cheshbon Pekudei Mishkan Eidus, Mishkan Eidus, and then go to the Cheshbeinis, and then the Torah could add that B'tzalel and Leib made the Mishkan to teach us that B'tzalel did what Hashem told Moshe, not what Moshe told him. But why put in the posik, this posik right after Eile Pekudei, before it gives the Cheshbon? Why does it belong there? So there must be another point here. Rabbi the Rebbe says the pshat can be like this: the Mishkan the Mishkan had to belong to everybody. It had to be belong to Klal, to the Yidden as a unit, its own unit, as its own entity. And in order 16, the Rebbe says, like by the Beis Hamikdash, David collected the money from every Shevet for the Beis Hamikdash, so every person should have a part in the Beis Hamikdash. Mishkan even more. But the bottom line is, every Yid, this had to belong to every single Yid as part of Klal Yisrael. In other words, to ganz Klal Yisrael. Why? It wird angerufen, in the beginning of Parsha, it says, Mishkan is called Mishkan, Ho'edus, the Mishkan of testimony. And Rashi explains, testify what? Eidus li Yisrael, Shevita l'Makadosh Baruch Hu Ma'aseh Egel. This was a testimony to the Yidden that Hashem forgave them for making the golden calf. Sharehisha Cheshonos b'neim. And he told them to make a Mishkan. For Hashem should rest. That means Hashem wants to come to them. So that's a sign to the Yidden, a testimony to the Yidden that David forgave. Und in the Doves von alle Yud Gimel Tesvav Dvarim. So therefore, all the donations, the 13 things, or some counted as 15 things, whatever, all the donations that Eden gave, hat man gedacht, weggeben, behelfen, als sie sollen den ganzen belangen zum Zibur, nicht bleiben Scheich zum Jochel. It had to be given away in such a way by the people. Each one took his personal things and gave it, but it had to be given away. It should become part of the entity of the Tzibur of the community. Because if this is forgiven to Egel, that's something that has to do with Klal Yisrael. So the Mishkan, which is a forgiveness for the Egel, has to belong to Klal Yisrael. How did it become part of the Tzibur? Now, it says in Ha'or 18 that it says in Gemara, anytime a person donates something to the Hekdesh, to the Beis Hamikdash, has to give it away completely, give up his own personal thing. But here there's another reason, not just because of how you have to give away, because you have to make sure that this is part of the Tzibur, because the purpose of the Mishkan is a Tzibur kind of thing. It's a community thing that David forgave Klal Yisrael. What made it, when everyone gave this money, what made it now become completely 100% part of the Tzibur rather than a connection to each individual? This it happened through bringing everything to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Nosi called Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu is the leader of all the Eden, the Nosi of all the Eden. But they say, is the ganze Truma was Eden gebrach geworden nicht Tzibur. So all the donations that Eden brought, each individual brought his donations, but they all gave it to Moshe. Moshe contained all of Eden. The Nosi b'meila that became everything that they brought, the gold, silver, everything they brought became part of the Tzibur. And in Hora 19, the Rebbe says, so even though the din is that every individual could give it, as long as he gives it over to the Tzibur, so why do we need here a special thing of giving it to Moshe? So the Rebbe has a whole long Hora here that even we said, but there's a condition, you have to give it away completely. But if every individual gives it, you never know, maybe he didn't really intentionally give up his connection. Certainly when we're talking here about the Nova, the Mishkan, every person had to brought women and even children, and there sometimes it's hard to say that they gave it away. Not everybody's in that level to give up his connection. So in order for it to become possessions of the Tzibur, It had to be given to Moshe because Moshe is the Nasi. And the Rebbe quotes from Rashi in Chukas where it says, Nasi Ador hu kechol Ador ki Nasi hakil. The Nasi of the generation is like the whole generation. He is everything. So that's him. And the Rambam also says, a king, Leib Kal Yisrael, the heart of a king is the heart of Kal of the Kal Yisrael, the whole community of Yidden. So therefore, it's only by coming to Moshe and became, by him, it became one new entity, the entity of the Tzibur. And the Rebbe says also that this is al derech, like through the king and through the Nasi, Yidden Beklal become a Tzibur. That's written in different Svarim. So here also that the money becomes part of the Tzibur as a Tzibur money fund, that to be brought to Moshe. La'achar v'Moshe tobi gem the nitvus hamishkun to B'tzalel v'Eliyav. But then after he brought it to Moshe, so it became Tzibur. What did Moshe do with it? He gave it to B'tzalel and Eliyav and Kodesh Chacham Eliyav and all the craftsmen, all that worked, everyone who worked at it. That they should work with it and do all the work that has to be done for the Mishkan. We're skipping the paragraph, the parentheses for a second. So now that it was given back to them, so now since they were working on it, so they had some specific ownership, a certain level of ownership. We know when a craftsman works, his name is on it. So it's so to speak, has a certain specific connection to individuals. But even though it didn't leave the ownership of the community. But still, because he gave it, each one worked on it, and there's a rule that if someone works on it, there is a connection between the worker and the thing. And in the parentheses, the Rebbe said, especially if it's possible that they didn't get paid for what they did. That's even more reason that it connected to them. If they got paid, you could separate. They got paid for their work, and then the object is separate. But if they didn't get, so they have a connection to the object because they put themselves in without getting paid. So here there is a possibility to think, or maybe actually to happen, that they became connected to the individuals. Therefore, there had to be this whole thing that Moshe, which means after it's finished, Moshe should count and give a cheshbon of all the things that happened. Why? What's that game? Because after Betzalel and the rest of the people finished making the Mishkan, there had to be a certain act, the counting through Moshe Rabbeinu in the Allah Malachas HaMishkan, in all the things of the Mishkan, as his own in Ganzen sei nichts HaMishkan, they should become again completely possessions of the Mishkan, welches Edels Yisrael, which is the testimony to the Yidden, which is Klal Yisrael. Der Mietet was herausgenommen von der Scheiches, was so geschaffen durch Hasid, Betzalel, Liebe, Cholchach, Molev, zu werden legamer und nicht Tzibur. By Moshe counting, after it's all finished, now Moshe again is involved. So now any specific individual connection that each of the workers had, leaves them again, it becomes again part of the Tzibur, which is something that was very important because this is for Kapora for the Chet Egel, it had to be part of the Tzibur. The Rebbe adds, there's another point here. Not only that to make him holy, to put the Kedusha on it, on the general Mishkan, had to come through Moshe, nor each object that was done had to become holy for its purpose. That was also had to be done through Moshe. So Moshe, when he counted it, the whole thing became under him, so it's all connected to the tzibur. And each individual thing with which individual purpose it had, also came, the kedusha of that purpose came through Moshe. And that came after Betzalel. So after Betzalel did it, Moshe Rabbeinu had to count it to bring back. So in the beginning, they brought it to Moshe. They brought it to Moshe, so it became tzibur. So each one gave up his rights completely, because it came to the Nasi, who is the whole thing. Then he gave it away back to the workers. So now there's back to connection to these people. It still belongs to the tzibur, but there's still some connection. Moshe wanted to take away that connection too. It should be completely the tzibur. Moshe counted it. Und der Rieber ist der Teire Mafsik und sagt gleich noch ein Posik Pekudei Mishkan. Als Puket auf Moshe, that's why right after the Posik, these are the countings that Moshe counted. The Posik adds the zwei Psukim, the two Psukim, Betzalel, Viti Ayolov, the Betzalel and Eliyav, etc. Eliyav made the Mishkan, And he says this, from Kol Azov. Before the Torah continues with the cheshbon of the gold, and the cheshbon from Kesef and the Cheshes, and the cheshbon of the silver and the copper. So the Torah, right away, as soon as it's counting, the Torah wants to give an explanation. Why did Moshe have to count it? The meat is musber, the Teichon and the Torah from the Pekudei shall be Moshe. This explains that as soon as the Torah starts off, Leib could Moshe counted. He tells us right away, you know why Moshe counted? Because Betzalel and Eliyav and the other people worked on it. So Moshe had to count it to bring it back. And then it goes into the counting. And in this order 24, the Rebbe's Maira goes in very length in different individual parts of the Mishkan, how they were not part of the Yochid and the Tzibur, a long, long order, which a lot of details, a lot of lumdas here. But the bottom line, the Kudah that the Rebbe is trying to say here is that now we understand why the Torah repeats about Betzalel, but not just to repeat. Torah puts it in a place to explain why Moshe had to count it, to make sure that now it becomes back to the Tzibur. Now, this is only concerning the making of the Mishkan, the building and the kelim of the Mishkan. This whole idea that it has to be part of the tzibur because it's supposed to, it's forgave for the egel, which is a tzibur thing, so they had to be, is only concerning making the Mishkan. But the to the Begit Kuna, concerning the garments of the Kehanim, we see that as soon as Hashem commanded Moshe to make the garments for the Kehanim, he said, bring the Kehanim close and make garments for them, and that will make him into Kehanim, that will make him holy. So Rasha says, that these garments you should work on after you finish the whole Mishkan. That means like this: the big tekuna vasiyosem, the garments of the Kehanim, and making the garments of the Kehanim was durch big tekuna der lekatche lechaneli von Aaron and Bonev. By the big tekuna, this makes holy, and the Kehan, Aaron and his children is not beemtze or the bechlal Mishkan. It wasn't made in middle while they were making the Mishkan, and bechlal it wasn't part of making the Mishkan. Making the big tekuna has to be after they finish with the Mishkan. That's what Rashi says had to be. Why? Why does it have to be afterwards? And the Rebbe explains why. You could say the reason for it is like this: the kedusha for the kaneli b'mishkan, the kedusha of a kohen to make him into kohenim, to serve Hashem in the Mishkan, ken zay norbes is do the mitzias from the ort for his ken zay v'shachanti. You have to have a place where the Shekhinah is there. And therefore, after you have a place where the Shekhinah is there, now requires that you should serve Hashem. That when you have a place, now is first possible, the possibility now that you have a place, so now you need kahuna, you need someone to serve. So to make the Kehanim, make them holy, and it came through also through making the Begodim. So all that is a separate step. That's not part of the Mishkan. After you have a complete Mishkan, now comes the second step. So they have to be made after. Before, there's no place yet where you have to serve. There is no concept of a Kayan. There's no concept of a person serving in the Mishkan. And there's no place for getting dressed with the garments. So the Kehanim became Kehanim after there was a Mishkan. The putting on the garments is only after Mishkan, because that's all part of their becoming Kehanim to serve in the Mishkan. Same thing as we're making the garments. That making the concept of making the garments for the Kehanim, for to become Kehanim, is only after the Mishkan was finished. There's the Metzias, there is a Mishkan. Now starts the second step. It's a separate step altogether. So now we came to an understanding that making the garments, and which contained gold also, and we'll see that soon, is not part of making the Mishkan. Now we'll understand the question was why in the Posik doesn't say that Moshe Rabbeinu made a cheshbon of what they used the gold for. We said he waited till after the big tekuna, the copper and the silver he made right away as soon as it was finished. That was in the Mishkan. He couldn't make a cheshbon right away of the gold because the gold wasn't finished yet. He waited for the big tekuna. But why didn't he make the cheshbon after that, we asked? Now we understand why. Why? The Teich of the Pulas Pekudei Mishkan, what was the reason why he counted, we said before? It's kehem shechakosov. It's like The Pasuk says, violate is Mishkan Eidus Canal, because it is a testimony. Eidus Yisrael, Shevitel HaMakadosh Baruch Al Maisa Egel. It's a testimony to the Yidden that Abishah forgave him the Egel, because he brought the Shechina here. Now the Shechina comes in, nothing to do with the Kehanim. The Kehanim serve Hashem who is in the Shechina, but the Shechina comes down first. So the Mishkan has to be a tzibur thing. Why? Because the Mishkan is the forgiveness for the Egel. So only the Mishkan where the Shechina rests is important to be tzibur. The mail is negeyas melechas hamishkan welche hishter shchinoset, that making the Mishkan in which the Shechina rested. So sein a hekdesh was is in ganze Sheichel Kal Yisrael. There has to be something holy which is connected to the whole tzibur of Yidden. On kein shum sheiches zu Yechidim sheb Yisrael. No connection to any individuals, Yidden. Not even the connection to those who made it. Has to be not. But that's only concerning the Mishkan. But the garments, which is not part of making the Mishkan, it's important for the service of the Kehanim in the Mishkan. The truth is, even in the case of the garments, it has to be moment tzibur, has to belong to the community. But there's no stress, as is only there's no reason, should have no connection to the people. They are not part of the Melechas HaMishkan, so not part of what the Mishkan represents. The Mishkan represents tzibur, the forgiveness for the Egel. That's the tzibur, that's what it is. The big tikkun has to do with Aveda. That doesn't necessarily have to be from the tzibur. Now, it has to be from the tzibur. That's why anybody who donated had to give it away to the tzibur. But there's no need completely to have. By the Mishkan itself, there's a need because the Mishkan is a tzibur dikinyan, because the Mishkan represents the Shechina coming down. That's the proof that the Eibishter forgave them. That needs 100% only tzibur. But by the Vik Kunde, which is also a part of tzibur, but there it's not either. So there was no need for Moshe to make the cheshbon of the gold. This explains something else, makes something sweeter, something more understood. A difference in the donations. By Nitves HaMishkan steht es man das altgebracht von Moshe. By the donations to the Mishkan itself, it says they brought all the donations to Moshe. And Betzalel, Leib, and Kodesh Chachma Leib, and Betzalel and Leib and all the other workers, they took it from Moshe. Schenken der Zov und Cheles from the was gemacht, the big Kunde, but the material, the gold or the material, the blue wool and etc. that they use for the begodim, even though as Rasha says it came from the donations that was made special for the garments as a tzibur. So October the Pasuk Heim Yikus Azov. The Pasuk says they will take it, meaning Eisam Chachme Leib Sheyasab Godim, those smart people, craftsmen that will make the garments, Yikablu Mina Misnad, Rasha's Loshen, will accept it, will take it from the donators of the Zov at Cheles Lasim Sabgodim. Take it from them. It's a strange thing. Why is it that the things from the Mishkan came to Moshe? Moshe gave it to the workers. The things that's connected to the big dekuna went straight to the workers. And based on what we said before, it makes a lot of sense. Because by the Mishkan, you had to make sure that it's completely tzibur, had to come to Moshe. By the big dekuna, it's not so important, it should be completely tzibur. So there was neither should come to Moshe. So why should it come to Moshe? It went directly to the workers. But by the Mishkan, where the Mishkan is a tzibur dika concept, then that they brought to Moshe. Al-Pi Anal, that was based on what we said till now, that this will add another additional point why this whole concept had to happen through Moshe. We said the fact that Moshe counted it is because it had to be through him. This whole idea that when an individual gives a donation to the Hegdesh, and he has to give it away and it should not be his anymore, it should belong to the fund of Hegdesh, is not Afke Mamesha. That could be any treasurer of Hegdesh. You have to give it to him. And when you give it to him and you give it away, it has to be given away. Here, besides what we said before, there's something even more that Rebbe says, why it had to be given to Moshe. And in this case specifically, why? It's not only like we said before, because Moshe was the Nossi. And the Nossi is Klal Yisrael. The male by giving it to Moshe became part of Klal Yisrael. Here the Rebbe says another point. It's because Moshe was a person that he himself did not need any forgiveness for the Chet Egel. As I said before, and other time, and in the order it says it's printed in a different sicha. Moshe given der einzige was hat nicht gehabt Sheiches Chas V'Shalom Tzichat Egel. Moshe was the only person who had no connection to the sin of the calf, of the golden calf. Afilu nit beifim for yesh be'odalimches. Some people didn't worship the egel, but they could have stopped others, and for not stopping others, it's also connected to the egel. Moshe wasn't there. Moshe was in heaven. So he had no connection to the Mele and he gedacht umkommen to the minyan of Mishkan Eidos. So he didn't need to come on to what the Mishkan represents, the testimony that Eidos the Israel, Shevita l'Makadosh Baruch HaMa'aseh Egel. The Mishkan is a testimony that the Eibishter forgave him for the Egel. Moshe didn't need that. And the Rebbe, so therefore, if Moshe didn't need it, all other Yidden, mit Zadem, was they haben gemusst umkommen zum Mishkan Kapora, they need to come on to the Mishkan to get forgiven. Wer durch seine Saskes, Basis am Mishkan, Scheiches von den Dvorim, Shnas Al-Yodem mit Zei. Anybody who needs what the Mishkan is supposed to represent, so if he is working on making the Mishkan, then he has a personal connection. So by all the other Yidden, there is a personal connection. When you brought it to the workers also needed, every Yid needed a kapara. So he felt something, he's working on a Mishkan, something close to him. And since everyone felt a certain specific personal connection, fell down in the shleimus von Hekdesh als nichts tzibur. So the things that they used to make the Mishkan, there's something missing there to be part of the tzibur. Because they felt, each person felt that it's going to help him. In order that it should become property of the community completely, even after they made it and they felt their personal connection, it should still be completely from the klal for the tzibur, not individual, but as gemuz al pi Moshe. I have to be through Moshe. Why? Because Moshe had no personal connection to it, because he didn't need the kapara. That's another thing. We see who put up the Mishkan. The made is one thing, but who put it up? Is Moshe. By Yevias Mishkan on Moshe, it says they brought the Mishkan to Moshe, but als gebracht to Moshe, they brought everything to Moshe. And daf al yodei zugestellt geworden the Mishkan. Only through Moshe the Mishkan was put up. It's all for that same reason, because Moshe had no connection to the Egel, so Moshe had no personal connection, and Moshe represents the Tzibur. But Mele, that was completely moment of Tzibur. Another reason that Rabbi gives why it's connected to Moshe. The Ufto of a Mishkan of the Ander Mikdoshe, the specialty of the Mishkan over the Beis Hamikdash Rishon, first Beis Hamikdash, second Beis Hamikdash, is in them was said is anitzchi. The Mishkan is eternal. The Mishkan never got destroyed. The Gemara says in Seite, Nivna Mishkan Rishon, that when they built the first Beis Hamikdash, Nignes Eil made Kroshev, Ubricha V'Amudim Adonim. So the Eil made, when we use the Mishkan, the walls, all the details of the Mishkan, everything was hidden. That means it wasn't destroyed. When the Tam the roof is, why was it not destroyed? Was it hidden? While the Mishkan is Maisi de Moshe, is nicht shaykh as bottle werden. Since Moshe made it, something that Moshe made can become bottle. So we see Moshe has the special care that whatever he did won't become bottle. The river bechol prat shall asi kedav zayin the Pekudei al pi Moshe noch zayin ezer asi. Therefore, everything that was done had to be given through Moshe that it should become an inyan nitzchi. Now, whichever way it became an inyan nitzchi, but the Mishkan, as we said before, became an inyan nitzchi, it was hidden. So in order for the Mishkan to be hidden, it had to be through Moshe. So it had to come sof kosof, it had to be involved with Moshe. Therefore, every detail of the doing had to become through the counting of Moshe. After it was done, so it should be forever. But the garments of the Kohanim, it doesn't mean that the garments of the time of Mishkan of Moshe, those garments stayed forever. It's not so. It's only a detail that you have to have in order for the Kohanim to be able to serve Hashem the Mishkan. But it's not that they themselves have the importance. We don't find that the Begik Hune, the garments of the Kohanim, was also hidden. You don't find the Minyan HaNitzchi that is forever. The Rabbi in order 45 does bring that obvious that Reb Nosson. It does seem to say that the Begik Hune were also hidden. So it could be this argument in Madrashim, whatever it is. But generally, the Begik Hune was not forever. So that it didn't have to come through Moshe. And this fits to what we said before. The whole reason Moshe counted it, so he should be the last word. It should be connected to him. Why did we have been connected to him? So before we said because we want it to be for the tzibur. Also, we said we wanted to be, and therefore it had to be with Moshe, had no connection to the Egel. Now there's another word, he wanted to be Nitzchi, so it had to be brought to Moshe, so it became Maisa Moshe, something that Moshe did, and it's forever. Now the Rabbi said, Yesh Leimer at the beer and Nala, the Mufta from Pekudei Mishkan Api Moshe. This I said before, the explanation, that when it says Moshe counted these things, as the minion of Moshe took it on the Keshet zwischen the Mishkan and Kelov to Moshe, that by Moshe counting, that cause brought about a connection between the Mishkan and the Kelim, the vessels of Mishkan to Moshe. That's what we said before. Is Echmasim mit dem Pirish Apnim in Eila Pekudei Mishkan. Fits to the Chassidische Pshat in this Posik Eila Pekudei Mishkan. With der Alter Rebbe is providing the Chassidische Parsha from der Woche. Alter Rebbe explains in Pekudei Torah of this week, and the Rebbe refers to Pekudei Torah and Torah Eir. In every Parsha used to use the Lashon, that's the Chassidische Parsha. So the Alter Rebbe Pekudei Torah, Parsha Pekudei, explains something that fits to what we said before. What does it say there? Zogdor, the Alter Rebbe says, at the Pirish from Pekudei Mishkan, Pukad al Pemeshe, it uses the word Pekudei, and it says Pukad al Pemeshe. Now, normally, we said before, it means counting, but the Alter Rebbe adds a pshat. It's from Loshen Chai Vodem Lifke Desishte. It says a person, certain times, has to, Lifke means remember his wife. It doesn't mean remember, has to have union with his wife. And which Loshen is used? The Loshen of Lifke Desishte. By la yichud nika pekida. When you have the yichud, when you have the connection, that's called pekida. So the Alter Rebbe explains this al pechsidis. The Rebbe only mentions it, but doesn't explain it. As durch Pekudei Mishkan, Pukt al Moshe, that through the Pekudei Mishkan that Moshe did, he geworden der yichud from Vovke, yichud Zohar Malchus, and then the yichud from Yudke. We know in all the mitzvahs, everything, there's yichud Yudke and Vovke, Yudke Vovke Shemavaya. And there's a concept of connecting the Yud to the K, to the Hey, and then the Vov to the Hey, and all kinds of connections, and that happened through the Mishkan. So the Alter Rebbe connects it to the word Pekudei. Pekudei means connection. Yesh Leimer. So now the Rebbe is going to show the connection between that pshat and the pshat that the Rebbe said before, that Pekudei means that his counting connected the Mishkan to him. Yesh Leimer, das ist eich nishtal, that this also is connected to the physical part, which comes from the spiritual part that we just said. There is yichudim that happened. This connects to the lower part, that when it came to be counted through Moshe, is geworden a yichud zwischen the Mishkan and Moshe. Pukat comes from the word, Pekudei comes from the word connection. So you see that it's connection in the Elamis, in the Shemus, and that brought down, that down here, there was also a connection. That Moshe's counting, which is also pshat in the word Pekudei, is also connected to the word Pekudei, meaning connection. Es ist geworden ein Zach mit Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Mishkan became one with Moshe. Kanal Baruch, as I explained before. That the Rebbe said the Pirish Anal in Pekudei Meloshen Chai Vodem Lifke Desishte, that we just said the pshat in the word Pekudei means, like the word person at certain times has to be Lifke Desishte, to remember his wife, it means to have union. Is nit ken bezun the Pirish from Pirish Aposhim Melosh Minya V'Cheshbon. It's not a separate pshat from the simple pshat, which means counting. Normally we learn Pekudei means counting. Then there's the Chassidische pshat, Pekudei means connecting. They're two separate pshatim. So the Rebbe says, no, it's not only are they not two separate pshatim, nor ze seinen totally zebazed. The two pshatim are connected. How did this Pekida, this Eila Pekudei, brought about the connection, the yichud, the union between Moshe and the Mishkan and Moshe Rabbeinu? It does durchinyan, I mean, is the counting. So the Pekudei is counting. The counting is something that brought about the connection of Moshe with the Mishkan. How? So the Rebbe said that das Verstehen behagden will explain this by something else. L'chure seine die zwei Pirushim anal in Pekudei, Minyan and Yichud, Pirushim Hafkum. L'chure, the two pshatim in Pekudei, one means minyan, counting, one means union, connecting, are opposites. Minyan is the darge von Achicha Tzene v'Tachtene von der Sach. When you count something that has nothing to do with the thing, it's the lowest part of it. Because when you count something, it's not it. When you describe something, you describe it. It's it. You say this is yellow, this is green, this is whatever it is. Or this is big, this is small. But when you think, this is number one, this is number two, it doesn't describe it at all. It's the lowest thing. It's counted as something. So it's the lowest thing. More than that, that stresses the limitations. When you say this is one, this is two, this is three, you're stressing a limitation. This is 10. It's not 9, it's not 11, it's 10. It tells us what it specifically is. Schenke from the Rinja from Pekudei beyichud, but when we say the other pshat of Pekudei, which means connection, that shows on connection, not things are limited to separation. Because those are, when you count things, you're separating. This is one, this is another, separated. When we say it means yichud, it means connection. That says by the case by we said there it says in the Pasuk that they become one. They become one flesh. They become one. So we see that Pekudei means one. So that's that's when you say there was a yichud, like the Alter Rebbe says there's a yichud in the shemus, whatever, through the Mishkan, that means the opposite of limitations. The yichud means it brings down more hashpoah. When it talks about the husband and wife, so it says that it brings down the unlimited power of Hashem. The keich of Ein Sof brings it down lamata. So seemingly Pekudei meaning counting, and Pekudei meaning connection are two opposites. Counting is separation. This is the Baldabar is like zwei Perushim demselben Wort, but since they're two pshotim in the same word, is verstanden wie gerät kam I said many times, it's understood. That true, there are certain aspects in it that are opposites, but besides there being opposites, there's another aspect which is also an important aspect, that they're connected. Not only connected, one depends on the other. So what does it got to do with here? Rabbi the explanation is like this. In dem besteht der Ruf of Mishkan. What's the specialty of the Mishkan? This is what we're saying here. The Mishkan was like this. They took individual, limited objects, and in them, Gvul is Mamamshat and Gvul. And in these limited objects, they took gold, silver, wood, all things which are specific, limited things, which is Gvul. And in this Gvul, in this limited thing, they brought down the Bligvul, the infinity of Hashem. Hashem rested there. And that's the Bligvul. Like a simple pshat. First they build a Mishkan, which is limited thing. Then the Shechina rested, came from above. Like the Pasuk says, the Kved Hashem, Milas HaMishkan. The covenant of Hashem filled the Mishkan. Reason so much so, as Moshe couldn't even come in, it says in Pasuk. Because the cloud was there, and he couldn't come in. So what happened here? Here we have, they made a limited building, whatever it was, from limited things, and the Shechina came in there. And the Shechina is the Bligvul. So these are two opposites. And that's what the Mishkan is. The Mishkan is two opposites. Und die zwei Hoftus and Rumas in the zwei Perushim in Pekudei. These two opposites, and we say they go together, because that's what the Mishkan was, is hinted in the two pshotim, in the two translations of the word Pekudei. Pekudei Meloshem Minyan, when you say the first Pekudei is counting, was Moshe when they gezählt and gemacht am Cheshbon von den Novis am Mishkan, Moshe counted and made the Cheshbon of all the donations, vice of them Gevulshim am Mishkan. That shows on the limitation of the Mishkan. He counted, this is this is that, this is what they made from here, this made from here, this is how much this is worth. That's the limitations. Pekudei Meloshem Pekudei beyichud, the other pshat of Pekudei, that it means union, connection, shows on the second part of the Hamshochas HaBligvul Ingvul, that the Bligvul, the infinity of Hashem, comes on into the Gvul. So this we see that the connection of these two pshotim. The Pnimizdik Pirish in the Zwei Hofmanal and Pekudei. Now the deeper Pnimizdik pshat in the two opposites in the word Pekudei is not nor as in Mishkan sein and Geben beide Hoften Gvul and Bligvul. It's not only. That was adding another point to what we just said. We said that these two pshatim go together because they were together. There was Gvul, and in the Gvul there was Bligvul. Now you could have thought that the pshat is yet in the Mishkan you had two things. You had certain part was Gvul and certain thing is Bligvul. It's not that. Nor Nochmer, it goes more than that. As Beit is eine gewon ein Sach. The Gvul and the Bligvul became one. Der Gvul Gufa for Mishkan is not bottled geworden for seine Gvul. It's not the pshat that when the Mishkan had the Bligvul, it nullified and pushed away the Gvul of the Mishkan. It didn't. It stayed Gvul. Und bejachad in Zeh geworden ein Sach mit dem Bligvul. And at the same time, the Gvul became one with the Bligvul. As even gesehen begille in the morning, we saw that actually in the Oren. Was dort given Iker HaMishkan. Nuchas HaShchina. The main part of the Mishkan where the Shchina rest was in the Oren. So we know Amokim Oren Einem in Amide. The place of the Oren is not measured. That means the Oren took up space and didn't take up space. Just to give a fast example, Pshat, the Mishkan, let's say the Mishkan, Kedesh HaKadoshim was 10 amos. The Oren was in the middle. So if you counted from one wall to the other, it was 10 amas. If you counted from one side of the Oren to the wall, it was 5. You counted from the other side of the wall, the other side to the wall, from the other side was another 5. And in the middle, there was the Oren. The Oren took up space, 2.5 amma. So it should have been less on one side and less on the other side. No. So it took up space because you had to have it and the certain size. And at the same time, it didn't take up space. And the Rebbe is the Pirish in them. The Pshat is as nicht nur is in the Mokim Oren when given Shechina. This is Einem in Amida. Not only in the place of the Oren, there was the Shechina. And the Shechina is not measurable, not limited. Nor der Mokim Oren Guf is given Einem in Amida. The place of the Oren, place is limit. That place was unlimited. The limited place was unlimited. Nochmer goes further. Not only they were at the same time. Only when the Oren was limited and was measured with all the details, the area, the length, and the rechav, and the width, and the kem, and the height. The length was 2.5 amas. The width was 1.5 amas. The height was 1.5 amas. Only when that happened, if they would have made the Mishkan different size, it wouldn't accomplish anything. It would have been wrong. The Shechina wouldn't be there. So when is the Shechina, the Bleakville there? Because it was in the certain limitation. He said, that limitation at the same time was not limited. The roof to Mishkan is so now it comes to a subtle rule that the ufta of the Mishkan, the special of the Mishkan is as the Gvul, Guf is Bleakville, the Gvul itself is Bleakville. Und das ist die Scheiches zwischen die zwei Perushim und Pekudei. That's the connection between these two Pshotim in the word Pekudei. Moshe Rabbeinu had gemacht dem genuinen Cheshbon von Nidus HaMishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu made exact Cheshbon of the donations of the Mishkan. Der Cheshbon Gufe was Moshe Rabbeinu had gezählt. And this Cheshbon, which is the limitations of what they did to the making the Mishkan, what aufgetan, that made the Pekudei B'yichud. That brought the Yichud, which means the connection, which is the Bligvul. The Amshochas HaShechina Udusha versus Hecher from Gvul, that brought down that the Shechina, the holiness should come down. The holiness which is from Hashem higher than limitation, Be'efon Shal Yichud Mitam Gvul, that is connected to the Gvul. Keilal as the Gvul vert Nitzchi. So much so that Gvul became eternal, even though it's Gvul. The Gvul itself became eternal. And the Oren Take is eternal. And it was in the second and first base of Mikdash, and then it was hidden, but it was eternal. And the Mishkan itself became eternal. So here we have the combination of these two pshatim. And it has in it the yichud with the Yidden to Moshe, but the yichud between the Gvul and Bli Gvul also, and that's all connected to the two pshatim in Pekudei.